On the phone with us this morning, Kansas 1st District Congressman Tracy Mann. Good morning, Tracy.
Good morning, Nick. Thanks for having me this morning.
You bet. So are you back in Kansas already for the 4th, or are you in Washington today?
We're back in Kansas. So we had votes last week. We do not have votes this week, so I've been in the district. We did town halls all over western Kansas the last couple of days, which I always enjoy, but it's great to be back in Kansas.
All right. Well, let's talk about some of the things you got done before coming back to the Sunflower State. One thing that's important is here in the next day or two, a decision is going to come down from the United States Supreme Court regarding the program from President Biden to forgive student loans. Bottom line is, either way that case comes out, the Congress has made it clear that they don't like that idea.
That's exactly right. So when the administration issues an executive order, Congress can move to strike it down. It was called the Congressional Review Act. And so last week I voted to strike down what President Biden is trying to do there. And the legislation to strike down that executive order passed on a bipartisan measure. So, it's pretty widespread rebuke of what the president is trying to do. That goes to the Senate now, and of course the Supreme Court, to your point, is to release their ruling on it here in the next couple of days.
So, but regardless, doesn't it feel like, I'm not a lawyer, I took 8th grade civics, okay, but isn't the power of how to spend money supposed to be Congress's?
Yeah, Nick, then that's just it. President Biden, struck with a pen, is trying to wipe off, up to $15,000 of student debt for folks, which is incredibly unfair to all the other taxpayers who are footing that bill, not to mention those that worked hard and already paid off their student loan, and also those that never, took out student loans in the first place. So if this goes through, if Biden's able to do this, he will spend up to $400 billion, with a B, $400 billion of taxpayer money without going through Congress, so circumventing congressional approval. Founding Fathers set it up for Congress to control the purse strings. Hopefully the Supreme Court strikes down what he's trying to do, because, in my view, it's way beyond the purviews of what a president should be able to do. All
right, so you, along with Congress people from across the country, introduced legislation last week that would ensure that U.S. commodities are the big portion of international food aid. Now, there's two reasons for that. Number one is it gives a market for our crops, but secondarily, it's a way for America to continue to lead in the area of helping others when they're hungry.
Nick, that's exactly right. So I introduced, and it got Republican and Democrat co-sponsors from other countries, to your point. It's called the American Farmer Feeds the World Act. It does not spend any more money, Nick, but it basically is a technical change to make sure that as we are doing food aid around the world, let's be making sure that we are sending American-grown commodities, our ag products. Let's not just send money. When you just send money, it's hard to track that money. It's a lot of corruption, various things occur. Let's make sure that we are sending American-grown commodities. Now, wheat, and combines are rolling all over your listening area right now. Wheat's the number one commodity used for food aid. But there's other commodities as well, and these programs were set up to, increase demand and to make sure that we use our American-grown ag products. We've got away from that, and this bill returns us to the original intent of these programs.
Well, and one of the other issues with this, Tracy, and I don't want to get too far afield from what you've done in Congress because it's directionally correct anyway, is that if you have food aid that is sent basically just as cash, you don't know what that cash is going to turn into, especially if let's just say, for the sake of argument, that Russia managed to retain control of a portion of the wheat-growing portion of Ukraine through this conflict, and they got crops grown, and then crops ended up getting into the system, and so on. What you don't want to have happen is inadvertently have American dollars helping one side of that conflict or the other continue war in the guise of helping people with food.
Yeah, Nick, that's exactly right. And what we don't want to inadvertently happen, that and for monies to go to any country and not be spent on exactly what the purpose of those funds are, and that's to buy food. And so when you send commodities, it's good for the American farmer, it's good for our American shippers, and it's good for the people that receive them as well. And realize that when we send food aid, it goes in a bag. And the bag says a free gift from the taxpayers of America. And there's an American flag on it. There's two hands, shaking hands. And the goodwill that it promotes in these countries is incredibly high value to the United States. Not to mention, the fact that when you are feeding the poorest of the poor in another country, much lower likelihood that Islamic terrorism, other things are going to prop up there. So it's morally right. It's the fiscally responsible thing to do in the long run, so we can start wars before they start, and it just makes common sense. But again, this bill doesn't spend any more money. It just makes sure that as we're doing this, let's make sure that we're sending commodities and not just cash is the intent of the bill.
Earlier this month, your office sent out a release, Tracy, because you were able to have a vote on the House side, at least, of Capitol Hill, talking about something that it's one of those things I never thought that we would ever be talking about with our member of Congress, but protecting gas stoves. Can you explain?
Yeah, this is not nuts. So you've got the Biden administration has taken actions to ban or prevent gas stoves. So I, supported legislation that would stop them from being able to do that. And at the end of the day, Nick, it's about gas stoves, but it's bigger than that. It's about freedom. Why is the federal government trying to tell folks in Kansas that they can or can't use a gas stove? It's part of this whole push towards electric everything. It's an absolute ridiculous federal overreach voted for the effort to prevent Biden from doing this. But it's yet another example, unfortunately, of gross, negligent federal overreach.
Well, and Tracy, it feels like to me that there are just a series of these policy positions that assume, for want of a better way of putting it, infrastructure that we don't have in place yet, at the very least, let alone the practical economic considerations. You talked about those combines rolling across the fields. I find it almost impossible to believe that we will come to a point where those aren't powered by gas or diesel.
Isn't that the truth? I mean, you can't. You've got to have diesel fuel. We've got to have our fossil fuels. That's the bedrock of our economy. Well, now, people should have freedom. If they want an electric vehicle, they can have the right to do that. But this force and the administration pushing people and pushing the country this direction just makes most sense. And never mind the fact, Nick, we are blessed in our country with an abundance of fossil fuels. We need to unleash American fossil fuels and as well as our biofuels that we're able to grow in our fields. This is good for America. Under the last administration under Trump, we were a net exporter of fuel. Now we're an importer, and this push towards electrification this fast beyond what the market wants just makes no sense to me.
All right. So, Tracy, how's progress going on getting the Farm Bill taken care of this year? I read, but don't know what your position is, that it may or may not get finished by the end of 2023?
We're in the middle of it right now, and frankly, it's too soon to say. So, to remind everybody, farm bills are 5-year bills. Our current Farm Bill expires on September the 30th. I'm on the House Ag Committee. We have been doing a ton of work at the committee and in my office as well in reauthorizing this Farm Bill. We got to make sure that we get it right, pushing as hard as we absolutely can to make sure we get it done on time. We have, submitted all our requested changes to the committee. The bill is being drafted right now as we speak. It looks like it'll come to the floor or come to the committee for a vote. If not July when we get back, certainly when we're back early September in preparations for efforts to get it done by September 30th. If it doesn't get done by September 30th, then of course, it would work to happen right then. But I'd like to get it done on time let's get it right. Let's make sure it works for producers so we can move on down the road here.
Again, because September 30th is the fiscal year. You got to have everything done by then for 2024 budgeting is the idea why it's a September deadline, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That said, and this has happened many other years, if it's not by September 30th, then there'll be a huge push to get it done this fall. Do a short-term extension, get it done this fall. Nick, this farm bill, every indication is it's going to be evolutionary and not revolutionary. It'll be using a scalpel to make some tweaks, some small changes. Do not anticipate wholesale large changes for the things that impact Kansas agriculture, but we're going to be fighting tooth and nail to make sure that our farmers are represented at the committee and that we get a good result for our Kansas ag producers.
So the bottom line is things like crop insurance. It's not that there won't be changes, but the intent is to make things to try to make things easier rather than more difficult.
That's exactly right. It's taking a scalpel to make some tweaks, some technical fixes. There potentially will be some efforts by some to weaken, diminish, chip away at crop insurance. I think we ought to be making it stronger, fortify it, and improve it, and that's what we'll be working to do.
Well, and here's where I guess I would feel like whatever you believe about climate change and what caused it and whether it's whatever it is, the weather has been just more severe and affected agricultural producers in ways that we didn't expect over the last several years. So that would seem like something that both sides of the aisle could get together on, is to say, hey, if the weather's going to be more unpredictable, regardless of the cause, we need to be sure that there's a backbone for our producers.
Yeah, no, that's right. When you're a farmer, your business partner is Mother Nature. And there's risk that agriculture has that no industry has. And crop insurance is a successful public-private partnership. And frankly, Nick, over the years, as there's been various iterations, crop insurance is the most cost-effective way and the most fiscally responsible way to ensure a robust and stable food supply in our country. Food security is national security. That's why it's really important that we get this farm bill right. And crop insurance for our district will be at the heart of that.